Hi there and welcome to this video. In this video, let's see how to set up a remote Ubuntu desktop. So the remote Ubuntu desktop relies on XRDP and a desktop environment like XFCE. So in this case, I'm going to set up Ubuntu XRDP and XFCE as the desktop environment. So what is XRDP? It is used for accessing. Specifically, it is used for graphical access of your remote desktop. So the keyword here is graphical. It is based on XRDP. It is the same protocol. You'll install it on your Linux machine, in this case Ubuntu, and that will allow you to access your remote desktop. It's like logging into your desktop from a remote location. So let's see how to set that up, and I will be using Vultr for this demonstration. Vultr provides affordable servers. You can have bare metal servers. If you want to use a dedicated server, they have that as well. If you want to use a GPU, in certain situations, your remote desktop might need a GPU, especially now with all the AI workload requirements, you might need a GPU. We're just going to use a normal VPS in this example. The post is already here. I will follow some of it. I will not follow everything here. I will add the link for this in the description for you to follow and copy the commands. So let's get started right away. I will just deploy a quick server. I will deploy a server on Vultr. If you're new to Vultr, you can get $300 of free credit. I will add the link in the description below. I want to deploy a server. I'll just click there on quick deploy. And I want to deploy an instance, that is a server instance. First step, you choose the type of server you want. Here you can see you can get a dedicated CPU. That's just a VPS with a dedicated CPU. And there's also cloud GPU. So if you need a GPU on your server, then you can select one from there. Shared CPU, this is a normal VPS. And then bare metal, these are dedicated servers. Some of them have GPUs as well. In my example, let me go with a shared CPU. I can choose any location. I'll just stick with Chicago. Next step, you select the server resources. So in this case, I'll go with high performance. And I can select AMD. So depending on what you want to run on your desktop, on your remote desktop, then select the resources that you require. There are things you can actually run with just one virtual CPU and 1 GB of RAM. If you need to run like a browser for 24 hours, only one browser, I believe this would be able to work, but go with at least 2 GB of RAM. If you want to run multiple instances of your browser, running consistently 24 hours, start with something that's at least 2 GB, 2 virtual CPUs and 4 GB of RAM. And it's also important to note that if you want to run multiple browsers, in that case, you just need to get one server with a GPU, and that's going to make everything run flawlessly. Let me say I want to go with 2 virtual CPUs and 2 GB of RAM. So I'll select that and go to the next step. For the OS, the title of the video is Ubuntu XRDP. So I'm going to go with an Ubuntu version, and I'll just get the latest LTS version, the newest. So I'll go with that. SSH keys, of course, in a production server, make sure you're using SSH keys. In this case, I'll just stick with a password. I can give my server a host name. So let me just call it XRDP desktop. And then for the IP, or rather for the network, you can select if you want the public IP. Of course, you want a public IP in this instance. But if you don't need a public IP, you can always go with the private instances. So you can also have a public IPv4 by default. So you can also select to enable IPv6. There you go. So now I have IPv4 and IPv6. And then here you can select all these other options. Automatic backups, these are charged. If this server is important, has things that you don't want to lose in case anything happens, always select the automatic backups. In this case, I don't need it, so I'm just going to disable it. And since I'm going to set up XRDP, in this case, let me just go with a limited user. All right, so that's pretty much it. I can just deploy the server. So let the server deploy, then we'll log in. There you go. It says the server is running, so I can click on it. So let's SSH into the server, and then we can start installing everything we need. So if you're on Windows, download and install Git, open Git bash, and then follow along with that. You won't change any commands. Everything I type, that's the same commands you're going to type into your server, if you're using Windows, that is. So I'm going to copy IPv4, and then I will open my terminal. So I will log in, SSH. The user is the Linux user. Let's confirm that. User is called Linux user at the IP, Control-Shift-V. If you're on Git bash, Shift Insert to paste. And then type yes to yes, enter. And then copy the password, Control-Shift-V, enter. Control-L to clear the screen. First time you get the server, of course, updated. So I'm going to do sudo apt update, and if there are any updates, I want them to be updated. So I'm just going to change that command as well. Sudo apt upgrade -y. The first one is XFCE, and then we're going to install XRDP, and we're going to add the XRDP user to SSL sats. So I'll just copy that from there. So XFCE is the desktop environment. If for whatever reason you don't want to use XFCE, then you can always find a different desktop environment to use. Maybe you want to use GNOME, you can use GNOME. Copy that, come back, Control-Shift-V, enter to accept all that. Give it time to download and install everything it needs. Every time you receive any request to overwrite anything you already have on your server when you're installing something, always just press no. Unless you know what you're doing, press no. Okay, after waiting a while, everything is ready. The installation is complete. Let me check if my firewall is up. Sudo ufw status. Alright, so it seems the firewall is running. And if I try to access my server remotely, I won't be able to because it's not in my firewall. The XRDP port is not in my firewall. We'll need to allow that. So let's come back here. So in a production situation, usually I'll change the XRDP port, but in this case, I'll just leave the default port. But first, let's make it so that it is known that our desktop environment is XFCE. So I will open this file, edit it, the last two lines, and that will be added, and we're going to add that at the end of the file. So press I to go into insert mode, comment that out, and then we need to add this at the end. Enter, Control-Shift-V to paste. If you're on Git bash, Shift Insert to paste, and then I'll just press escape and then Shift ZZ to save the file. The next step, of course, after making any change, we are going to restart XRDP, Control-Shift-V, enter. There we go. XRDP is running. We can actually look at the status. And you can see it's running, it's enabled and active. Well and good. Now, as I've said, usually in a production setup, I'll change the XRDP port, and it's not difficult to do. It's something you can easily do in that file, and I do recommend you do change it. Or if you don't want to go through all these steps, you can always contact Bizanosa. We have a service here for XRDP desktop setup. We'll secure the server, set up everything, and we can even manage it for you monthly if that's something you're interested in. If you want to do it yourself, all the steps are here. It's not that complicated actually. Change the port and all. For now, what we need to do is we need to allow the default port. So the default port is usually 3389, and we're going to allow it. We're going to allow 3389. I'll just copy this and edit it. Copy, and I want to allow this port on the firewall, because if I don't, I will never be able to access. I'll never be able to access my XRDP server. Control-Shift-V. Let's change the port. The default port is 3389. Make sure you change the port. Don't use the default one, even though I see a lot of people use it online. Sudo ufw status. Alright, so there it is allowed. And if you're going to, you can see here port 22 is allowed, but some other ports that you may need to allow. Let's say that you're going to run a browser. If you're going to run a browser, you definitely need port 80 and port 443 open. Okay, so these are the bare minimum ports you're going to need to open on your server. 443, actually I need to open for both, so there we go. So this is the bare minimum you'll need on an Ubuntu setup. 22, that is a XRDP port, that is a HTTP port. That one will be accessible on your browser. Without that, you won't be able to use the browsers. Let's see how to log into XRDP and test our desktop environment for the first time. Something else that I usually just recommend, just run the update command again. Let's see, sudo apt update. Let's run that again, and then we're going to reboot the server. Rather, sudo reboot, and then after that we'll try to log in via XRDP. So on Windows, you can use the normal RDP client. Just enable it on your Windows and use that to log in with the IP and the port for your server. On Linux, install remmina and use remmina. Where is my remmina? Remmina. There is remmina. We're going to see how to use that in a moment. On a Mac, I believe there's an RDP client, the Windows one. So use that on a Mac to access your remote Ubuntu server, remote Ubuntu desktop. So let's check this and see if it's back online. There you go. Control-Shift-V, enter. Okay, you can also remove that. Just go to that file and delete everything inside. It will remove this, but the rest will remain. Control-L to clear the screen. Let's come back and log in to our server. So on remmina, I usually just like to add an RDP computer there. Instead of logging in there, you can log in with there. You can add the port and the IP there, but I prefer this because it makes it easier to copy and paste. If you do it any other way on remmina, you won't be able to copy and paste. So in this case, I'm going to add it here and save it. So give it a name. I can call it XRDP Vultr, and the server, let me get the server from here, paste the server there. So make sure you add the port as well. In this case, I didn't change the port, so I'll just use that. Username, Linux user. You can actually create a different user if you wanted to. And then I'll copy the password once again. Control-V to paste it in there. Everything else, not really important. the protocol as well. Make sure you select RDP right there, and then I can save and connect. Accept, yes. Cannot connect. Cannot connect. Let's check it. So I like problems. When problems occur, it's always a chance for you to learn something new. So let's look at the status. Okay, something seems to be wrong. Control C, Control L. Let's look at the logs. -f/var/log. Oh, XR, is there anything there? All right, XRDP.log. Enter. Received. Okay, so just by looking at this, let me try to enable TLS, and then we're going to see Control C, Control L. First of all, let me confirm if there are any certificates for XRDP. If there are any SAT, okay, there we go. SAT and key are there. So I'm just going to edit xrdp.ini to enable TLS. Control Shift C, Control Shift V, and I want to edit XRDP dot, and I need to enable SSL. Let's go all the way down. Okay, for the SATs here, Shift A, and I want to do key.pem and sat.pem, right? So this one will be sat.pem, and then the key will be key.pem. So these were generated during installation, and I'm just going to use those. And then security layer. Now that I've enabled SSL, I can just make it TLS. Shift A to go into insert mode, TLS, escape, Shift ZZ. Oh man, I messed up. I need to use sudo. Sudo. Let's do that again. Security layer. Let's make that TLS, and then certificate sat.pem, and then key.pem, and that's all I need to do there. Shift ZZ, and then I will need to restart XRDP. So I'll need to do sudo. Do I have any restarts? Control R, restart. Okay, there you go. Sudo systemctl restart XRDP. Okay, let's try one more time. Close. And just by enabling TLS, you can see now it's working. There you go. Let's make it, which one makes it wider? Is it this one? Scaled mode. Let's start with this. Okay, there. Yeah. So there you go. You have your desktop environment If you need to install anything, you can always do so. Don't be afraid of using the terminal. I know there are people that don't use Linux because of the terminal. I don't get it. I don't understand why that's an issue, using the terminal. So in this case, let's install Brave. Get Brave for Linux, and just one command is all you need. Bring it back here, Control-Shift-V, enter, and so this is inside of our desktop environment. Let's come here, Internet, Brave. There you go. You now have Brave. If you need to install anything else, you can install it. That's it. And if you need to update your server, you'll just do sudo apt update, and then sudo apt upgrade in case there are any updates. Yeah, that's pretty much it. How to set up XRDP server. Just make sure to secure your server, and some of the things you need to do to secure your XRDP is change the XRDP port, and that can be changed inside of that file. At least I've enabled TLS already, so everything is working via TLS. And you can also, so in a production setup, usually I prefer to use NF tables, and that's the one I would use in this scenario. So set up NF tables, add these configuration rules. You can edit whatever you need to edit in there, and then also you can change the SSH port for your server. Change the port to something different. Currently it's 22, and that is not secure. Also use SSH keys to log into your server, and disable password authentication. That is not going to affect the XRDP login. And you can also enable fail to ban, CrowdSec, just to secure your server. If you're going to use this server in a production environment, make sure to secure it as much as possible. So if you need something like that, a service to set up and manage, let's just go and see the current pricing on bizanosa.com. So you just come with the server, you provide us the login details, and we'll set it up for you. So you can do the one-time setup, or you can look after it monthly for you. Anything happens, we'll troubleshoot, fix. If you need to migrate to another provider, we'll do so as well within the monthly plan. So either if you want the one-time support, this one will just cover setting up the server. If you want the monthly, this one covers maintaining the server for you, so you don't have to do anything. You just log into your server and do whatever you need. Maybe if you need to install anything in your server, you just contact us, we do that for you. Currently this is the price. It might increase in future. If you want to support the business, if you want to support my business, I'll really appreciate it. Thank you. And in case of any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're struggling with anything, you try to set it up and something failed, just reach out. All right, that's it. Until next time. If you're new to Vultr, you can use Vultr. If you want to use any cloud provider that we are an affiliate of, just use the links below. Check the description. It's great to support. It's great to support us on YouTube. Creating these videos, not easy. Editing them is tedious. So thanks for your support in advance. Until next time.